Um, okay, so today we're talking about finger picking, which for me, honestly, is it's kind of difficult to in my mind to teach this because it's something that you just kind of cultivate as you go. But I'm going to help you. I'm kind of walk you through like how I have approached finger picking. Um, but it's a really useful skill because there are times when playing loud with a pick is not as appropriate, like if you're playing for like softer songs or for altar calls, that kind of stuff. Like playing with your fingers kind of gives you a different texture. So as opposed to just playing with a pick, it's great, but sometimes yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in the wrong class now. I'm supposed to be in drums.
Okay, sorry about that. Jordan. All right, there you go. You're good. So you just
Thank
hit the
you.
join button, or if you'll see a button that says breakout rooms. If you click breakout rooms, then you'll see a join button. There he goes. Okay. So yeah, there are times when you need to play lighter. So that's where finger picking comes in handy. It's great for if you just want to pick just the chords behind something. But it's also useful if you want to pick the melody of something along with the chords. Like, um, so you can add the melody along to something that you're picking as well. And we'll talk about how to do that. Let me just ask you guys: have you played around with finger picking at all? Is this something that you're familiar with? When have you used it? Like how does it usually work for you?
I never usually use it for core. I just do like the stuff.
Hmm.
Well, I know.
Does your finger picking, is it mostly like an arpeggio? Is it like one string at a time kind of thing, or you pick full chords?
I can do it like with like different fingers, but it's just like one note at a time.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Roger? Have you used it?
I normally use it like arpeggio and I did classical a little bit, just like like one song, I think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Classical guitar. I mean, finger picking for days for sure. I have actually never done much with classical guitar. It's something that's always been on my list of something to work out. Jimmy actually took guitar as his major in college, right, Jimmy? So like you would have had to have done a good bit of like classical playing, I would imagine.
Actually, the school I went to, I didn't really have to do much classical. It was all contemporary and jazz
Oh,
guitar.
okay.
So I asked my instructor was like the top gigging guy here in Oklahoma City. I
Yeah.
asked him one time if he like regretted not playing classical guitar, and he told me that he loses money because he doesn't. I thought that was interesting. And then I asked him how much money he loses, and he said about $10 per year. So we never really went much into classical guitar. Not that we shouldn't have, we just didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's certainly it's at this point it's kind of a niche thing, but
yeah,
I mean it's beautiful, and it could be a cultural thing as well. So like in Hispanic or Latino type music, um, classical guitar style is a little more prevalent. So and that's using fingers like so much. It's not a soft thing anymore in Latino music. It's very percussive with your fingers, and I wish I could do that kind of stuff. I haven't quite got to that point yet. But yeah, what about you, Anna? Do you finger pick very often?
Only for like arpeggios usually.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that. I think for like when I started learning how to pick or finger pick, I would, I try to basically play the same kind of chords that I would if I were just strumming, but I'd end up just picking random strings. Like it would be like in any random like tempo, or like it wasn't like a pattern to it. And that's, that's a good way. It's a good way to start because it kind of builds your dexterity. But at the end of the day, I think there's when you're finger picking, there's meaning behind it. Like it has like every string that you pick, it's purposeful, whether it's part of a melody or part of a pattern, because it makes it a little easier, a little nicer to listen to. So when you're finger picking, usually you're using your thumb and then your first three fingers. I don't know. I don't really ever use my pinky finger when I'm finger picking. I don't necessarily know that like you couldn't, like I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think because it's shorter than your other fingers, it typically doesn't, if I'm holding my fingers at, where I'm touching the strings, my pinky is not really touching a string naturally. I have to rotate my hand to be able to get my pinky on a string. So it's not as comfortable. And honestly, I don't know that you really need your pinky, but I don't know. What do you think, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think you're right. From what I gather from classical guitar players, that they don't typically use their pinky for most things either. It's all these three fingers and thumb, and then they break the rules occasionally and use their pinky.
Right. So you're using your thumb and you're using your first three fingers. Go back to my window. So as we're starting finger picking, arpeggios are a great place to start. An arpeggio is you're picking each note of a chord. So if you have your G chord, so does anybody know what notes are inside of a G chord? This is just some theory stuff. I know where guitar players think that they don't need to know theory, but it really is helpful. Does anybody know the notes of a G chord? What's the root note of a G chord?
G.
G, right. So we have G, we have B, D. So those are the three notes of the triad of G chord. So anyway, with arpeggios, we're picking each one in a particular order. Let me show you an example. Actually, it's cool that we have Jimmy here with us because Jimmy actually wrote a book for us where he teaches in three different levels how to actually play guitar. So let me share this. This is from the third book of the series, where he talks about playing fingerstyle guitar. So we're going to use his book here a little bit. Let's see if I can make this view sidebar. Okay, you guys see this pretty well. All right, so this is a very basic arpeggio pattern here that we'll see here. So this is on a D chord, and we're looking at half notes for each note, and a half note gets 2 beats per measure. So if I'm gonna pull my metronome out. This is what we were using yesterday. It's just 90 beats per minute. So if I'm approaching this, the bottom line gives us our tablature, which tells us what strings that we're going to be playing, as well as what fingers that we're going to be using as we're chording, but also as we're picking here. And the letters at the bottom of the line tell us what finger we're going to use in our right hand. I don't really know. Like I know these are Latin terms, right, Jimmy? Like why we're using P, I, M, and A.
Yeah, pulgar, indice, medio, and annular.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thumb first, middle, and then A. Just I know is my third finger.
Yeah.
Classical guitar player stuff.
Yep. So if we're finding, is this the same one? No. Go back to down here. This is our D chord. So if we're getting 2 beats per measure, or 2 beats for each one of these notes, just to show you as an example of how this goes, it would sound like this. 1, 2, ready, go. And then you would repeat it. And this is a good place to start because one of the things for me that was difficult with finger picking is trying to be accurate with actually getting my fingers on the strings. Because if you, as opposed to with a pick, you don't have to rest your fingers on the strings, and you also don't have to be as accurate about where your pick is being placed. You're just kind of strumming, right? When you're finger picking, you have to be a little more accurate as to like where your fingers are plucking. So taking something slow like this is probably, it's much slower than you would actually play in real life most of the time. But this, if you take it slow, it helps to build up your accuracy, both in time and in finger placement. Which actually just playing this slow, it takes a lot of thinking. Am I on the right string? So let's try this again. So here. You guys play along with me wherever you are, and then we'll move on quick from here. So don't get too scared here. So here we go. Here's this line, figure 28. Let's play it again. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Let's do it again from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And then we end on D. There you go. That's not too bad, right? What do you guys think? Are there any questions or difficulties so far? I don't want to go too fast. You guys got this. Okay. Sweet. Let's do a different one. This one is with quarter notes. This is starting with G, and we're going to change chords here. So we have G for 2 bars. We have C for 2 bars. We go back to G for 2 bars. D for 2 bars. So we have a little progression here. Let's try to do this one together. So I have my thumb on the low E string. My index finger is going to be on the G string. Your middle finger is going to be on the B string, and your ring finger will be on the high E string. So those are the strings that we're going to use here. All right, so let's try this together. Same tempo. Starting on G. 1, 2, ready, go. G. And here's D. And do it from the top. Here's G. C. G. D. And end on the G. Yeah. That one actually got me a little bit because it's like the 3-finger G as opposed to the 4-finger G, which I played at first. I tend to play the 4-finger G, and that's just me kind of being on autopilot, not looking at the music. So playing quarter notes is a little more representative of something that you may do in real life, but it still takes a little bit of thought and self-control to make sure that your time is right and that you're still picking the strings in the right spot.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, can I ask just a quick question?
Yeah.
Does everybody understand how to read the tablature that's under the music? Does it make sense?
That's a good
to
question.
everybody? Okay. Just real quick, Josh,
Yeah, let's do it.
all right. This is just kind of a helpful way for guitar players to be able to know exactly where to place their fingers. The problem for us as guitar players with written music is if you have like a middle C written down, there are multiple places on the guitar where that could be played. That same note could be played here or here. 2 different places. There are some notes that have 5 different places where you can play, or 4 different places where you can play the same note.
Yeah.
Tablature tells you exactly where to play, and it really helps us get our shapes right. So if you're looking at the music, these two staves of music are linked together. The top music is the top line is the actual music notation, tells you the rhythm and the notes. The bottom line is a tablature that tells you what string and what fret. So there are 6 lines on the tab staff. The bottom one, the one closest to the bottom of the page, is your low E string. It's kind of like reading chord diagrams. And the number, you see the first number on the low E string is a 3, so that means you play the 3rd fret of the low E string. Your next note is a 0, which means open on the G string, open on the B, 3rd fret on the high E. And then, like we talked about before, the letters underneath, P, I, M, A, that's thumb, index, middle, and then 3rd finger. So if you don't read tabs, then I read I don't know about you, Josh, but I read tabs before I read music.
I still don't read music for guitar. I have to, I read music because I'm a brass player, and I can translate it in my mind, but I couldn't sight read it.
Yeah, it's just a great shorthand. The drawback of tablature is by itself, it doesn't show rhythm.
Yep.
But the cool thing is you can go online to a website like ultimateguitar.com, and literally any song that you ever wanted to know how to play, you can go find tabs for. Everything from the Mario Brothers theme song to, I mean, if you wanted to go learn Through the Fire and Flames or something like that, you can do it all on there via tablature, and it's easy for us to read.
Right.
So that's why. Sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to take over.
No, that's good. So when I learned to play guitar, it was all by tab. It was when there were guitar tab websites like Ultimate Tab, or I forget what some of the other ones were. This is in the early days of the internet, unfortunately. But yeah, that's how I learned to play, and I can sight read tab much faster than I could like actual music. And once you kind of get used to it, it's actually very quick. All right, let's try a different one. Let's go to let's do figure 30 here. So this is I have to move my little window here. Yeah, this is using 8th note, so it's a little bit quicker, but we still got it. So this is using the chords E and A. And if you look at the tab here, we're not actually playing the full chord because we still are only working with 4. We only have 4 strings or 4 notes, 4 fingers to play with here. So we're using our index on the G string, middle finger on the B string, and ring finger on the high E string. I'll try to hold my guitar up so we can see. But let's try this pattern here. So these are 8th notes. So on this tempo, it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and A chord, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So it's a little bit faster. It requires a little more dexterity. But let's see if we can do this.
Hey, Josh,
Those are our notes.
I think the click is still in 4.
Oh, you're right. we changed the 3/4, didn't we?
Yep.
That would be a kind of a train wreck there. So this song is in this figure is in 3/4, which means we have 3 beats per measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. All right, let's try that. Good catch there, Jimmy. Here we go. 1, ready, play. Do it again. Yeah. So that one takes a little more thinking. Make sure we're changing our chords in the right spot, to make sure our fingers are on the right strings and that we're not muting. One of the things, Jimmy, that like when I was first starting to finger pick that I had trouble with, I'm curious if you have encountered this as well. I want my fingers to rest on the strings so I know I'm not losing my place. But when I pick them, I want them to ring out. How do you how have you figured this out? How to keep your hand in the right position when you can't actually rest your hands on the strings?
So for me, I like to think of a anchor point somewhere for me where I know that my hand is going to be consistent.
Yeah.
Same thing if I'm strumming. Honestly, I like to have somewhere where my hand can rest. So for me, it's really important that my right arm is consistent in the same place every time. And then I have my thumb and almost like this, if I tilted it up, like a thumbs up sort of position.
Yeah.
And that's home base. So your hand just rests right over the string and is not doing a whole lot of moving. If you're strumming, then it's cool because you can maybe like put your hand on the bridge or something like that. It's a little easier. You can move around.
Yeah.
But with this, it's just really important to get used, for myself, to get used to having this home base that everything comes back to. And
Yeah.
then,
I think I'm the same way. So like the way I finger pick, I do a lot of like, and we'll talk about in a second. Like I re-articulate the bass note almost on every beat. So like I kind of have this like, so that knowing where that bass note is kind of gives me like an anchor point. So yeah, I think I'm the same way. Yeah. What do you guys think? Is it difficult for you to kind of keep your fingers where they're supposed to be with your right hand? Yeah. No, Roger's got it. What about you, Anna? You good?
I mean, it's pretty difficult with it.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's weird. Like your hand moves around so much, and to try to keep them on the right, like in the right spot. Because in theory, like you could just be like, but then like you put your finger back down. What it ends up doing is it just mutes that string, but you want it to ring out. So there's something like you almost have to kind of keep your hand frozen in place so that you know where it is. And in some ways, when you're finger picking, you're less loose than where you would normally be. Like if you're strumming, we talked yesterday about strumming, you're keeping your wrists very loose, but maybe when you're finger picking, like you're a little less flexible. Like you kind of keep your hand in the same spot. Yeah. Let's try a different one. Let's go to, here's figure 31. So we're still in 3/4. I know that because that's what it says right here. But we're in the key of C because we have the chord C, the A minor, the D minor is the minor 2 chord in the key of C, and then we have G, which is our 5 chord. So let's give this one a shot. Here's our metronome again. So our fingers are on the same strings, which helps us really. So it's even when you get down to the D, like it's just your thumb that moves to a different string. So every other finger stays on the same string, which is nice. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's helpful when it does. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, go. Here's A minor. Here's D minor. Here's G. And do it again. Here's C. A minor. D minor. Here's G. And here's C. Yeah, there you go. So one of the things you're going to have to work out, and I can't really hear. Unfortunately, I can't hear how you're doing it. I'm hoping maybe you'll kind of share with us where you are. But trying to keep it smooth is the trick with finger picking. So and that just comes with the more you do it, the easier it is to like your fingers move a little freer, so it's less stodgy feeling. So the freer you are with your fingers, the smoother the line becomes, and that just comes with playing it. Yes, Anna, what do you think about your smoothness? Like, do you feel like is it pretty smooth, or is that something that is kind of a struggle for you?
A bit of a struggle.
Yeah, even me, like playing, like this is this is more of a classical kind of style finger picking, and it's not my normal. Like I cheat a little bit when I finger pick, and this is real finger picking. So even this, like you kind of like you have to almost, or for me, I have to in my head, I'm counting, I'm trying to subdivide that beat so I'm staying in time, but I have to almost hold myself back so I don't run away with it a little bit. Yeah. What about you, Jackie? How does it feel for you?
It's kind of hard, like especially when I get the notes out. It sounds like muffly.
Okay. Do you mind playing it for us? Yeah, there you go. Okay, let's try this. Let's not worry about changing chords here. Let's just focus on that C. So if we're staying on the C chord, let's just repeat that first measure over and over again, because it really is like finger picking is a pattern. It's like once you've identified the pattern, you just kind of keep doing that same pattern. So that just comes with muscle memory. If you hear the pattern in your head, it typically comes out of your fingers a little better. So let's just do that first measure, and we'll slow it down just a touch. Now let's go down to like 82. And 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and so let's try this together, and we'll just keep repeating this one measure. 1, ready, go. All right, let's settle in. A couple more times. Last time. And end on C. Yeah. So a lot of this, just like when we're learning to play our chords and switching our chords, getting our fingerings together, the more times you do it, the more you build that muscle memory. That when you build that muscle memory, your fingers you don't have to think about what each finger is doing, and it just kind of happens. Yeah. How you feeling about this, Roger? Like, is this something that you got pretty good, or is it you're trying to work out the smoothness?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Just when I learned finger picking, I only used these three.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You could
Which-
do that too. So to do a figure like this, yeah, a lot of people will just use your index and your middle finger. It makes your thumb have to be a little more active because that's one less finger. So and that's fine, especially, and we'll talk about this in a second. I will go from strumming to finger picking in the same song a lot of the time. So, and this is something I had to learn, kind of like it took a long time to figure out my smoothness here. But I'll tuck my pick inside my first finger so that I'll end up just playing with these two fingers. So I'll play with my thumb, my middle, and my ring finger so that I can hold my pick here, so that it's I'll go from like this, I'm strumming. I'll hide my pick, and then I'll go to picking here. But for me, like I'm only using these two fingers. So yeah, you can do it with just three, and this will come. It's particularly helpful when you're doing chord picking as opposed to like arpeggio picking. With arpeggio picking, it helps to have like that third finger. So it just depends on the style. Yeah. Roger, do you do more arpeggio stuff, or you do more like melodic or chord picking? Or just whatever sounds good in the moment.
Yeah, I do both, I think.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I don't want to go too fast, but let's. If you're okay, anybody have any questions on that? So like if you're having trouble, arpeggios are great because they really are helpful to kind of like you create the sense of a full chord, and it also gives it some driving rhythm to it, where you're only having to do one string at a time. But let's go to something different. This is I don't think so. I will actually. I'll send you guys a link at the end of this chat. These three books are now available on online with our what's called Ministry Toolkit, and it's a great resource for learning new techniques with guitar. And book 2 focuses on bar chords, and book 3 will talk more about like altering bass notes and how to use capos and playing at different time signatures. So there's a ton of stuff in there for you guys to use. And one of the great things about it is that there's an accompanying video that comes along with it. So I'll put links to these things in the chat. Yeah.
Hey, Josh, if it's helpful, we created on our website just kind of a landing page with direct links to everything so that you don't have to go through the Ministry Toolkit.
Yes.
Do you want me to share that?
Can you do that? Yeah, put your landing page link on there. And we've done a little bit of work in the recent few weeks where like it'll say figure 32 track 20. This is not in this particular file I have, but on the new one, this is a clickable link, so you can click this and it will play it or it'll pull up the video for you, which is really cool.
Do you want me to show that real quick? I think I've got it pulled up. I can show it. Share screen.
Let me see if I think I have to stop my screen share. Yeah, you should have it now.
Okay. So I haven't actually tried this yet. Yeah, so you go in here and then you click on the link. It takes you online. Oh, that was the audio track. Let me try that again. So you can view the audio tracks by clicking on those, or at the beginning, you can click on the video, and this is really great the way they did this. You click on that, and it takes you online, and there's the video. You can watch the video lesson, which is really cool as well.
Yeah, we don't see that. I think, but that's just a Zoom thing.
Oh,
it only shares one screen at a time. But when you click on that, it'll bring up a web browser with a video link, or with the video, which is cool. So yeah. Anyway, go check those things out because there's a ton of great content in there. All right, let's talk about chord picking. This is one of my when I'm finger picking. This is what I default to, where I'm picking whole chords. Okay, still using the same 3 fingers. I don't really ever use my pinky finger. If using your pinky works for you, great. I just that's not something I typically do. And my pinky may be shorter than yours, so if it works, great. But the idea of chord picking is that you take a chord. Let's just start with a G chord, and I'm going to pick. So you can arpeggiate the chord like what we were doing before by picking each note. So that's an arpeggio, or you can pick the chord in more like 8th note rhythms, which is what I default to. So what I'll do is I'll pick the full chord with all 4 fingers. And you could do that, even just that, like in quarter notes. It's a different texture than just strumming them in quarter notes. They both sound good, they're just different. So, sometimes you may need that. I feel like if I'm playing quarter notes like that, I need a little bit more rhythm to kind of keep it going. So I will use my thumb on the bass note on the in between, on like the ands of the beats. So it would sound like this. So it gives it some motion to it. Does that make sense? So I'm picking all 4 fingers on every quarter note, and then on the ends of it, I'm using my thumb on the bass note. So I'm going chord bass, chord bass, chord bass, chord bass, chord bass, chord bass. Yeah, Can we try that? So let's do that together. So we'll do one measure of G. We'll do one measure of C, one measure of G, and then one measure of D. So 1, 4, 1, 5. If you like the number system. So here we go. Let's do that to get that together. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, here's C. Here's G. Here's D. Do it again. G. C. G. D. And end on G. And I like to like slowly rake with my thumb, like the fleshy part of my thumb. I like to slowly rake a chord at the end. Just, just feels good. What do you think about that? Like, is that difficult? Like, is there something in there that's kind of a struggle? Is it easy? What do you think, Jackie? I see you waving. I can't see you though.
I think it's easy, but like how like to grab all the fingers from these three is kind of hard.
How to grab them?
No. I only know like the thumb part, which is like the only easy part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the cool thing with chord picking. As long as you are fretting a full chord, it really doesn't matter what strings you're picking with the top three. So you can have the top three strings where it's like this, or you can do like lower strings, and it's a different texture. So sometimes some parts of the song you want a little more bassy sound. So you could do like your thumb on the low string, and then the next three strings are what your first three fingers are picking. But as long as you're fretting the full chord, it doesn't matter which strings you're picking. Truthfully, it really is like you're providing chord structure with a little bit of motion in a soft kind of setting. Yeah. You guys have any questions about that? Like, does that seem pretty good? Sweet. Okay. So that's that's something I'll do, particularly if like if I'm in an altar call kind of situation and I'm not necessarily going at like there are times when during an altar call I'm not actually playing a real song, like I'm just playing a random progression. Don't tell anybody, but sometimes I don't have a song to actually play. But you can play it. You can play a progression that way. And it's like a medium drive kind of thing, but you can use that as your bass to add a melody on top of as well. So there are times when, and this is where knowing your scales comes in handy. You don't have to like, yes, it's great to know all of your scales, all your major, minor, modal scales. But at the end of the day, for this kind of thing, as long as kind of your major scale, then you can do some melody stuff. So and certain keys work better for this than others. Like for instance, G is a great key to pick a melody from. So let's see, what's a song we could do? Jesus Loves Me. Okay, so I know that Jesus Loves Me starts on the 5th scale degree, which is D, which it's within my my G chord. So if I start there, so that's all on my G chord. So if I'm adding my my chord picking underneath that, I can add a melody on top of it like this. And then when you switch chords, sometimes you have to think about like where the melody is in relation to the chord, but you can add a simple melody on top of it. But again, that really comes down to knowing where those notes are on the scale. So on your G, like this is probably not, it's not the right form for a G scale, but if you start on this open G string, your G scale is G, second fret, open B string, first fret, third fret, open E string, second fret, third fret. So there's your scale, and if you can figure out where the melody is on that scale, the chording underneath it is really easy, particularly if you're using your thumb to kind of like give like that eighth note bass kind of feel. You see how that works? So I'm still picking quarter notes of the chord, but my bass note is doing this like eighth note thing. I don't know if that has a particular technique name to it. That's my default finger picking. Yeah. What do you think, Jimmy? Do you have anything to add to that, or do you do something different?
No, I do basically the same thing. It's just a great way to help fill space and have some motion that keeps moving. So
Yeah.
just depends on the texture you're going for. If you want to go arpeggios, or if you want to kind of do this broken up chord thing. There's no right answer. It's just all being sure that you are capable of doing all of these techniques, and then when you're there in the moment, then you have this vocabulary to call on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And again, so knowing your scales is really helpful to this. So like G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. But you can also, there's also, I don't know if there's a theory term for this, but like there's a scale of chords, like you can add chords to each note of the scale. So like I'll play around with that as well. So your G is fine. So A becomes A minor. Your B, which is the next note of the scale, becomes G over B, or B minor, if you'd like. Your fourth is a C, so it's a C scale or C chord. Your fifth note is a D, which is a D scale or D chord. The next note is E, which in the key of G is a minor, so you have E minor. And then the next note is F sharp, which is your 7, which F sharp major doesn't work in the key of G, but D over F sharp works really well. So you can add that. So if I'm finger picking, a lot of times I will add, like I'll pick the chords that associate with the scale degrees of the scale. So I know that sounds really complicated, but let me play it for you, and it might make a little more sense. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Does that make sense? So every note of the scale has a chord associated with it.
An easy way to remember that if you're doing your scales is 1, the first note, the fourth note, and the fifth note of the scale. If you play a chord based off of that note, then it's major. 2, 3, and 6 are minor. 7 can be diminished, or you can do the altered bass note thing. But the ones we want to worry about are 1, 4, and 5 are major. 2, 3, 6 are minor. So like what Josh was saying earlier, we're going to play the 1 chord in G. Well, that's G. We're going to play the 4 chord in G. Well, the fourth note of G major is C, and the chord based off of that has to be major. Yep. So that's why that works. It means that every note in each one of those chords belongs to the G scale.
Right.
It's a really useful thing for guitar players to know.
Right. And it works really well, as your finger picking, because if I'm walking down the scale, that's just walking up and down the scale using the associated chords with that note of the scale. Does that make sense? So the melody that I just did was G A. Sorry, B A G G A B C So, G, sorry, B, A is part of the D chord, E, and there's a couple of different ways you can think about it. But if what I would have you guys do is just try to practice figuring out what chords those are associated with each scale degree of the scale. Does that make sense? I know that's a little complicated to try to explain it, but hopefully it makes sense to hearing it. And that's when you can do some really fun stuff finger picking. What do you guys think? Are you thoroughly lost? No. Roger, have you played around with this kind of stuff? Like adding like different chords with your melodies?
Yeah, but I didn't do like that. Like,
How do you do it?
by melody, you mean like just like adding melody to chords?
Yeah. Like is this something that you have you played around with?
I mean, I don't usually do it, but I just play the chord and then add the melody note. Like, I just play the chords and
Yeah,
with
and that's exactly, yeah, that's right. That's what we're saying. So like, if you add a chord to kind of give it some substance, and then you play a melody on top of that. And your melody doesn't have to be associated with a chord every time. Like sometimes you just want to play the chord on like, beat 1 and beat 3 of your measure, and your melody just kind of plays around it. So it's a little more simple, which is great. Yeah. Jackie, what do you think? Is this, does this give you anything to work with? Anything to work on?
Yeah. Like I already knew like how like the chord progressions, like the 2 minor, 3 minor, and 6 minor.
Yep. Remember that, because then you can apply that to any key that you're working in. So it doesn't,
Yeah.
it works well. We know G very well as guitar players. G is a very guitar friendly chord, but sometimes you have to do it in E. So if you know that your 1, your 4, and your 5 are major, your 2, 3, and 6 are minor, and then the 7 is usually, if you're unless you do some crazy stuff, it's usually an inversion of a 5 chord. Then
Yeah.
yeah.
I attached, just if anybody wants help with that, I put in the chat a link to a chart of scale harmonies. It goes into 7th chord, so it'll, for like a minor chord, it'll say A minor 7, but you can leave off all the 7s and just do majors and minors. But it's a chart of all the keys and all the chords in those keys. So that could be helpful if you want to just grab that and save it for your reference.
Yeah. Thanks, Jimmy. That's really helpful.
No problem.
Okay. I don't. The last thing I had, which we talked about before, is just, there are ways that you can go from strumming to finger picking without having to like drop your pick and then have to pick another one, or the hold your pick in your mouth because it's hard. Like hopefully you're in a position where you should be singing as well as as worship leaders. We hope that you're singing as well. So hiding your pick is kind of it's a fun little trick for you to work on as well. So for me, it works really well in between, like if I hold it in the creases of my first finger, and that way I have these fingers to pick with. So give that a try too. All right. Any questions? Anything else that you had that you were hoping you could clarify today? You guys good? You guys are super talkative. All right. Well, I'll let you go then. Thank you for hanging with us. Finger picking. Give that a try, particularly the chord melody stuff. That works really well, and it just takes a little bit of time, and then you'll figure it out. No problem. We'll hope to see you guys throughout the rest of the week. We got some more fun stuff that we'll do together, and if there's anything in particular that you're hoping to get out of like acoustic guitar class, just let us know, and we'll make sure we touch on it. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.